Welcome to the Health Headliner podcast by Tudu Digital. Our content is informational only and not medical advice. Please consult your provider. Now, let's dive into today's headlines.
Okay, so have you ever wondered what your brain is actually doing when you fast? Like beyond just, realizing your stomach's empty.
Interesting question.
Yeah. Because there's this really cool research that's suggesting the hunger signals in your brain are way more directly connected to your immune system than we ever thought.
Right. It's amazing, isn't it?
Totally. And so this deep dive, we're going to be talking about some really fascinating work that came out of the University of Manchester.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, and we're diving into a scientific paper that they published in Science Immunology.
Nice.
And there are also some interesting insights in a health news article that kind of talks about this whole thing.
Mm.
And both of these are pointing to a whole new way of understanding how skipping meals or just not eating for a while actually affects your body's defenses.
Absolutely. It's a real game changer.
So you wanted to, kind of explore this whole topic with us.
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're really interested in all the little details about fasting and what it's really doing to your body, not just, the simple, oh, you're not eating kind of thing.
Right. More than just skipping a meal.
Yeah. What's going on beyond that.
Yeah.
And you want a clear picture of the science behind it.
Right. Yeah.
Without getting, totally lost in all the super complicated details.
Right.
So basically, our goal today is to break down this research in a way that makes sense. Highlight all the important stuff that you should take away from it.
Perfect.
And maybe even, have some aha moments about the whole mind-body connection that happens when you're fasting.
Yeah, I love those. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the actual study.
Okay.
What were these scientists trying to figure out? So the big question they were asking was basically whether your immune system's response to fasting, which we know happens, is just because there aren't any nutrients coming in, or if your brain is actually actively involved.
Interesting.
Yeah, they thought maybe the brain, by sensing hunger and fullness, might be directly telling the immune system what to do.
Wow.
So the study was all about trying to separate those two things.
I see.
Like what happens when you don't eat versus what happens when your brain just thinks you're not eating.
That sounds like a really hard thing to figure out.
Yeah, it's pretty tricky.
So how did they even approach that?
Okay, so get this. They use mice.
Okay.
And they use this really cool combination of genetic and chemogenetic techniques. Chemogenetic, it's a mouthful, right?
Yeah.
But it's super cool. It lets scientists activate very specific neurons, like brain cells, using special drugs.
Oh.
Yeah, so in this study, they were interested in these neurons called agouti-related peptide neurons, or AgRP neurons for short.
AgRP neurons.
Yeah, they're in a part of the brain called the hypothalamus.
Okay.
And guess what? These are the neurons that make you feel hungry.
So they could target the cells that make you feel hungry.
Exactly. They basically genetically engineered these AgRP neurons in the mice so that they could turn them on with a specific chemical.
So they could make the mouse feel hungry even if it wasn't actually fasting.
Exactly. That's the amazing part. So it's not just about the food in your stomach, right? It's about the signal in your brain.
So even if the mouse just ate, they can make it feel hungry.
Yep.
And then what?
Okay, so then they really carefully watched what happened to different types of immune cells in these mice.
Okay.
They were especially interested in these inflammatory white blood cells called Ly6Ci monocytes.
Ly6 what now?
Ly6Ci monocytes. Don't worry about the name too much. Just think of them as a type of immune cell that can cause inflammation.
Okay, got it.
They tracked these cells in the blood and also in the bone marrow, which is where these cells are made.
Okay, so they're looking at these cells in the mice that they're making feel hungry.
Yes.
Even though they're not actually fasting.
Right.
Did they compare those to mice that were actually fasting?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
They had a separate group of mice that fasted for a full 20 hours.
Okay.
So that they could see if just triggering the hunger signals in the brain had the same effect on the immune cells as actually not eating.
Makes sense.
But they didn't stop there. They also looked at the role of other neurons, the ones that make you feel full, satisfied after a meal.
I see.
Those are called pro-opiomelanocortin neurons, or POMC neurons.
POMC neurons. Okay.
They also looked at the liver, the sympathetic nervous system, that's part of your body's fight or flight response. And even hormones like glucocorticoids. They really wanted to get the whole picture.
Wow. So they were looking at all sorts of different things.
They even used these genetic tools to silence the AgRP neurons, basically turning off the hunger signal.
To see what happens if they can't feel hungry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They wanted to know what happened to the immune cells when the mice were fasting but couldn't feel hungry.
That's fascinating. Okay, so after all of that, after all of these experiments, what did they learn?
Okay, you ready for this?
Yeah, I'm on the edge of my seat.
So when they artificially activated the hunger neurons, the AgRP neurons, in mice that were well-fed, the number of those inflammatory monocytes in their blood plummeted.
Really?
Yeah. And it happened fast, like within a few hours.
Wow.
And it was almost identical to what they saw in the mice that actually fasted for 20 hours.
So just the feeling of hunger was enough to trigger this immune response.
That's exactly what it means. And here's the kicker. The mice that were made to feel hungry, their blood sugar levels were totally normal.
So it wasn't just because their bodies were low on fuel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the lack of nutrients. The brain is doing something more, something active based on what it thinks is happening.
So it's almost like the brain's in control.
Right.
It's not just waiting for the body to tell it what's going on.
And to prove it, they silenced the AgRP neuron.
Oh, right.
So these mice, they couldn't feel hungry. And when they fasted, their monocytes didn't drop like they did in the other mice.
So those AgRP neurons are like really important.
They're key. And they started to figure out how it all works.
Oh.
So the hunger signals from the brain, they actually affect the liver.
Oh, okay.
It leads to this decrease in something called mammalian target of rapamycin signaling, or mTOR signaling.
mTOR signaling.
Yeah, think of mTOR like a growth sensor in cells.
Okay.
When the brain senses hunger, it tells the liver to turn down that sensor. And it does this through the sympathetic nervous system.
So it's a whole chain reaction.
It is. And then this leads to lower levels of something called chemokine ligand 2, or CCL2. Yeah, CCL2 is basically a signal that tells those monocytes to come out of the bone marrow and into the blood.
So the brain's talking to the liver through the nervous system, and that affects what the bone marrow is doing.
It's amazing, right?
Wow.
But wait, there's more.
Really?
Yeah, they found that corticosterone, which is a type of glucocorticoid hormone, it's released when the AgRP neurons are active.
Okay.
And it also plays a role in all these immune cell changes.
Oh, wow.
So if they block the glucocorticoid receptors, the AgRP neurons couldn't do their thing as effectively.
I see.
It's like the brain's using two different pathways to control the immune system during fasting.
Interesting.
And they found that if they activated the POMC neurons, the ones that make you feel full,
right,
in mice that were fasting, it actually reversed the reduction in monocytes.
So the brain's really in control here.
Absolutely. The study basically shows that there's this teamwork happening between the brain's hunger signals and glucocorticoids to control immune cells during fasting.
Okay, so we've got this picture now of how the brain and immune system are connected during fasting.
Yeah.
But what does this actually mean?
Right. The big question.
Like, why should we care about this?
Well, for one thing, this could lead to new treatments for inflammatory diseases.
Oh, really?
Yeah, if we can understand how the brain controls the immune system, maybe we can develop therapies that work without actually having to fast.
That would be huge.
It would be. Because fasting isn't always safe or easy for everyone.
That's true. What else?
This research might also explain why some people with cancer develop wasting syndrome.
Wasting syndromes.
Yeah, it's when people lose a lot of weight and their immune systems go haywire, even if they're eating.
Oh, that's terrible.
It is. And this study suggests that the brain's perception of energy levels might be a big part of the problem.
So even though they're eating, their brain thinks they're starving.
Exactly. And it triggers these immune changes.
I see.
And it could also help us understand why obesity and inflammation often go hand in hand.
Right, because that's a big problem.
It is. And this research shows that it's not just about how much you eat, but also about how your brain interprets those signals.
Wow.
And this is really interesting. The central melanocortin system, which includes those AgRP and POMC neurons, it's already being considered as a target for therapies for things like severe weight loss, which is called cachexia.
Okay.
And now, knowing about its role in immunity could make those treatments even better.
That's great.
Yeah, it's really exciting. But I think the biggest takeaway here is that our perceptions and our brain states they can have a huge impact on our bodies.
Like a real mind-body connection.
Exactly, even down to the level of controlling our immune cells.
So it's not just about what you eat, but how your brain thinks about what you eat.
Right, and what your brain thinks about your energy levels in general.
This is all super fascinating, but I know every study has limitations.
Of course, of course.
So what are some things that we need to, keep in mind about this particular study?
Well, the main thing is that they used mice.
Right. Right.
So we need to do more research to see if these exact same things happen in humans. But the good news is that the temporary drop in those monocytes during fasting has been seen in both mice and humans.
Okay, that's encouraging.
It is. Another limitation is that they didn't figure out exactly where corticosterone acts on the immune cells.
I see.
And the way they manipulated the neurons and hormones might not be exactly how it happens naturally.
Right.
But, these limitations, they don't invalidate the findings.
No, of course not.
They just show us where we need to do more research.
So it's like opening a door, right?
Exactly.
To a whole new area of understanding.
And there's so much more to explore.
So what did the researchers themselves say about their work?
Well, Dr. Giuseppe D'Agostino, he is the lead researcher, he said something really interesting. Our perceptions can shape our bodies in ways we don't always notice.
Wow.
He was really emphasizing that mind-body connection. And he also warned that if the brain's perceptions get messed up, it can throw everything off balance.
That's important.
It is. Then there was Professor Matt Hepworth, an immunologist who worked on the study.
Okay.
He said that this research challenges the old idea that fasting only affects the immune system because of nutrient levels.
Right.
He really highlighted the powerful influence of the nervous system.
So it's changing how we think about fasting.
Completely. And Dr. Cavalcanti de Albuquerque, the lead author, he was really excited about the potential for new treatments based on this research.
Oh, that's great.
He thinks that by understanding how the brain controls immune cells, we can figure out when and how fasting might be good for us.
Wow.
And that could lead to new ways to treat all sorts of conditions.
It's amazing to think that our brains, just our thoughts about being hungry,
right,
can have such a big impact on our immune systems.
It really makes you wonder.
It does.
Like, what other things are connected in ways we haven't even thought of yet?
Right. What else is going on in our bodies that we don't even realize?
Exactly. So think about it.
Yeah.
Your daily routine, even your thoughts about food, they might be affecting your immune system in ways you'd never imagine.
It's a whole new way of looking at things.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for taking this deep dive with me.
My pleasure.
I think the big takeaway for everyone listening is that our brains are way more involved in how our bodies respond to fasting than we thought.
Absolutely. It's not just about the absence of food.
It's about how our brain interprets that absence.
Exactly. And that has a huge impact on our immune system.
So we need to pay attention not just to what we eat, but also to what we think and feel about eating.
Right. Our mental state matters.
And as always, this is just one little glimpse into the amazing world of health and biology.
There's always more to discover.
So keep exploring, keep learning, and join us again for our next deep dive.
Thanks for tuning in to the Health Headliner podcast by To-Do Digital. Like and subscribe for more health news and breakthroughs. Stay healthy and informed. See you next time.